It's only been sort of since I was talking to you guys, the Vic No-Till, about the strip fronts and how you could use it in a broadacre system. And then it was funny because after that year, and I think it might have been 2020, I think it was at the conference, we had a heap of guys from WA.
Yep.
My phone did not stop ringing, and everybody's ringing about, can you get me a strip front?
Yep.
Because we were short on them. And disc seeders. Everybody was looking at it because they just go, you know what, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it does.
Between the two.
It does. They should be sold hand in hand.
Peas and carrots.
Yep. Yeah. If you like peas.
If you like
your daughter
peas,
does it.
That's right. Welcome everybody to the Serif Machinery podcast. Today I've had the privilege of coming out to a bit of God's country here at Marrar, New South Wales, to catch up with Dan Fox, Vic No-Till president, and guy that I've known for a fair while. So I thought we'd just come out and have a bit of a chat, have a cuppa, and shoot the breeze. How you been, Dan?
Yeah, good. I will correct you though. God's country's on the other side of that railway line.
Oh, is it?
Us, yeah. So we're out in the dry country.
We're looking out over it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty good here, mate.
North of the railway line, it's always low rainfall zone.
Yeah, right.
Further south you go, the better it gets.
Yeah, and you asked some blokes just a couple of 100 k's that way, and it's God's country down there. Very good. Well, where we start, bit of family history. You've been here for a fair while, mate.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, the family has been.
Yeah,
fourth generation in Marrar on the Fox side, fifth from down at Maddong on the Hattie side. I don't know if you can catch it in the back of the shop, but sort of just over the back of that hill there was sort of where the Fox family first started farming in
Fox's Lane. I did see that.
Yeah, down Fox's Lane there. Yep. So, Dad's granddad started that. He had the mechanics business in Marrar and a truck driving carrier business before he bought the farm.
Yep.
But yeah, Granddad sort of started our business on his own. Down at the Willows there, you can see where those hay bales are just behind us. That was sort of his first block, and then this one come about, and then expanded from there. So don't quote me, but it's sort of 63 or 61 or whatever it was that he bought this place here, and so been here for a little while. So
very good. And how many hectares we got in this?
We're a bit over 2,000 now.
Yep.
We're not spread out terribly wide. The furthest place is sort of out near Burnton and Hart. That'd be sort of 12 k's front gate to front gate. So,
right. That's unusual for nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of people are spread out.
Yep. No, we're very fortunate that we did what we did.
Is that a strategic decision though, to try to keep it all together?
No, not really. It's just
the way it's panned out.
When country come available. Well, 98 we bought Kalula, which is just behind me.
Yep.
And then I think it might have been 89. I think Granddad and Dad bought where they're living, where Dad's living at the moment. And we only got our next opportunity in 2008. Right in the middle of the droughts, and thought, well, we've had however many now. Can't have too many more. I was still at school, and
it's coming to the end of it. It's got to be.
Yeah, and then we bought that place, and then had two more. So. But while everyone was walking, we tried to run a little bit. Bought one in 2008, and then the old farm come available again, Granddad's farm.
Yeah, right.
So bought that, and then 13, 14. So we put a bit of country together. Probably doubled our acreage since probably 2008.
Yep.
And this was back sort of.
But lucky enough to be able to keep it all together.
Yeah, well, it's just we had an opportunity to buy country, and we're in a reasonable position coming out of the or going into the droughts. I think we've got to credit Dad and Granddad with the way that they ran things, and certainly the way that they managed their money to actually go into the drought debt free to give us an opportunity that
I know. Just always talking to your old man to David. It's always been he's always very calculated and planning everything and thinking about the big picture.
Yep.
And I could see that it's probably been something that's been drummed into you a fair bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But coming from where Granddad come from
as well,
you had to do a lot with very little.
Yep.
I've got a set of dies down in the shed there, taps and dies that are absolutely worn out because old bolts and old nuts and stuff like that. We've rethread them, and that's what got them through, and couldn't afford an oxy, so turn the stick welder right up, and that's your oxy. Those sorts of things that cutting sheet steel with a welder because you didn't have an angle grinder, of course. And, you know, those sorts of things is how, you know, we got to sort of where we were today. Or
reuse and repurpose as much as you can too.
Yeah, and be very, don't be too wasteful. Like we've got a scrap heap down behind the trees there that's about 20 acres. And,
you know, use it.
Well, the saying is you use it eventually. So,
eventually, yeah.
One day we'll use it.
I'm pretty sure every farm's got some, but a lot of the time they just don't get to use it.
Yeah. Oh, it sits down there and things move on. But it's that mentality of don't be wasteful. Don't, certainly you've got to throw things out when they're worn out. But it's one of those things that, we try and, we're not spending too much money on the things that we don't need to spend on and on waste and
spend it on the stuff that you do.
Yeah, that's right. So
thinking about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
not just reacting. Yeah, it's been a good credit to you guys to what you've put together here.
Yeah.
So it's just you and your dad at the moment working.
Yeah. Obviously my wife Rach and mum are part of it too, and certainly hope that Hugo and Georgie want to do that as well. And
good.
Granddad's still, like, he's living in Coolman now, but he's still very much a part of the farm, even though he probably thinks he's not. But he comes out and has a riding tractor and sees what we're up to, and just make sure
chucks his 2 bobs worth in.
No, not so much. He goes with it, but
does he?
It's really interesting to see.
He probably knows it's in good hands, mate.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I wanted to. Make sure that it is right, and it's still his farm, and we're looking after it. Hopefully for the next generation. But
that's what it's all about, isn't
it? Yeah. It's interesting when he comes out and you have conversations about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and where we see the farm going and how we want to improve things, and certainly how we want to improve our biggest asset, which is our soil. You explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and he can, he still understands farming. Even though farming's changed a lot from his generation to Dad's generation to our generation, it's
with your grandfather. Did he have anything in regards to that around soil health and looking after the land, or was it more about trying to just make do and be able to keep farming for the foreseeing future, or was he more long term, and was he trying to plan?
I don't know. Yeah, it's sort of. I guess they probably, the best way to describe it, I think, is just they did with the best with what they had at the time. Obviously cultivation was a big part of agriculture because herbicides weren't about.
And that's what we had to deal with. That's what we had to use. So
and certainly no-till, the way that we know no-till, with your disc seeders and single disc. Actually, it's a funny story. We had a mob of Argentinians come over. I was about 14 at the time. About 2000. It must have been 2005 or whatever it was. But anyway, we know the story that South America's been no-till, like proper no-till for a long time. We had our knife point rotary harrow machine, old Flexicoil bar, sitting out there, and they said, "Oh, why don't you use discs?" And well, this is just what we've done, and it's really funny that we've sort of evolved to a point where if you take that thinking, like they've been doing it since the 70s, and there's really no reason why we probably couldn't do either, except what was between our ears and
what we had here available.
What we had here, that and what we knew at the time. That's so right. I think when we have these conversations with over 2 or 3 or 4 generations, you can't be too critical of previous generations because they did the best with what they've done at the time. And
that's right.
Even though, with new knowledge now, we'll say, well, heavy cultivation probably wasn't the right thing for our soils. I'm certain that there's things that, there's things in the previous generation that I'll say that
the stuff that we're doing now that we're going to look back in another 10, 15 years and go, can't believe we used to do that.
Yeah, but that's the nature of agriculture where, the more we learn, the more we know that we don't know.
It's exactly what your old man said before to me. He goes, we've just opened up a little can of worms, and then that can of worms had more cans of worms in it, and it's just growing with, well, hang on a minute, what we don't know about is we're learning we don't know about even more.
And we don't know what's necessarily right. We don't necessarily know what's wrong, and
it's the fact that we're asking the questions.
And that's
and talking about it. I think we're lucky now with our technology that we've got in regards to communication. We can communicate a lot of this stuff worldwide a lot quicker and easier, a lot more effectively than what we've done in the past. So that's a tool that we've got now. And again, like this podcast, we're just sitting here having a chat. This is, the sort of conversations that I think are very important in agriculture, is talking about, because I'm going to go and talk to somebody else and go, oh, you know what, I remember talking to Dan the other day about this, and then he'll talk to his neighbour, and it spreads, people talk, and it gets people thinking. And I think that's what we've got to focus on nowadays more, is we've got land. We're not going to get any more land. We've got to use that land better, and we've got to look after what's on that land, and that's our soil. And it's been a big part of what Daryl Serafin's pushed into me, coming into Serafin's and looking at with their multi-stove product, but also Vic No-Till. And that's why, unfortunately, we haven't been there for a while, because neither was I. So now I'm back. Look out. But that leads us into Vic No-Till. So. Your dad's been a part of it for a long time. You've been a part of it for a long time.
I wouldn't say long time, but been there for a while.
Well, how long's Vic No-Till been about?
Be coming up 22 years. Don't quote me. We had our 20th anniversary.
Yeah, right. Actually,
that must have been 2 years ago.
It is too.
Yeah, so this will be our 22nd.
As we say, time flies when we're having fun.
Exactly right. So and over that time we've
But it's changed too.
Absolutely. We've had to stay as agriculture's changed, so have I guess the demands of our membership base, and you got to stay relevant to your membership base, otherwise you die. And Vic No-Till was born in the Wimmera at a time where people were practicing no-till, and other people in the district weren't, and going through those dry years, 20 odd years ago, one farmer, and we don't have square clouds, we all know that. But one farmer on one side of the fence, stripping 2.5 tonne of barley, and the other one didn't make it to even be able to have a hay cut. And the difference between that was no-till and till. So, we can see that a lot of the no-till groups around Australia were developed to try and encourage farmers to get into conservation agriculture, to really benefit farmers. And it's been that peer-to-peer knowledge sharing thing that's made them really, powerful.
Last few conferences I went to, I couldn't believe how many guys from Western Australia are over. They're over here looking at what we're doing over here and taking some of that information and ideas and thoughts back. And that's what we want.
It is.
We want to share
absolutely.
Because, you have been around a bit and seen a few other areas of Australia and what they're doing too.
Certainly have. This is, I think, really important to put everything into context. So, Dad was fortunate enough in 2017 to go over to the States and have a tour from North Dakota. Rick Beaver was the tour guide. And they went all the way from sort of North Dakota all the way down. Finished up in Vegas, which depends on who you were, whether that was good or not. But he saw a lot of countryside. I can't remember how many miles, 3,000 miles on a bus in a week. Saw a lot of countryside, but it's really good to go to there, or go to England, go to New Zealand like we did earlier this year. With Vic No-Till. And it's really good to do that, but it's really important to put what into context in Australian conditions, because we're really lucky to have Tim Parton over here, and he's in this paddock just in front of us here. And fortunate enough to have my agronomist come over and travel around for a couple of days together. And first thing we did, dug a plan up, and he said, that's where your aluminium toxicity is. And Tim Parton, who's very knowledgeable in the regen space, he said, what's that? Never seen it before.
Really?
So it's a really important thing that we can take a lot of these a lot of practices from all around the world, but Australia is so unique.
And our soils are different.
And we're so diverse in our soils as well. Like my soils here, completely different to Griffith soils.
100%.
Completely different to Western District soil. And then the climate is different as well. So, what we've got to remind ourselves is the principles that we're trying to implement are all the same. We just need to
being able to tailor it.
And that's where I think the broad communication that we've got at the moment is really good for sharing ideas, but people need to remember that they need to make it work on their own farm. And even my farm to the neighbour's farm is different, because we've been doing different practice for for years.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of fences out in my time, and I can see differences across the fence.
Yeah.
On the same farm that's been managed the same for 20 years.
Yeah, right.
Like, because the fence has been gone for 20 years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Is that because the way that the paddocks were utilised?
Yeah, it's paddock history.
The paddock history, and just shows up in the crop 20 years later.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know people that have had paddocks, fences gone for 50 years, and they still show up.
Yeah, right.
You can still see where we've gone round and round the headland still.
Yep.
You know, and there's things that do show up.
Yep.
Even though we've been up and back for a lot of years.
Yep.
Certain things like that do show up. So that's putting things into context on your own farm.
That's amazing.
But
I've heard of the whole controlled traffic, and then seeing the agronomist drive across.
Yeah.
And then 2 or 3 years later, you can still see his track marks.
Yeah. No, and I can say that I'm not a militant CTF bloke.
Yep.
You're allowed to turn around halfway through if you've got a miss.
If you have to,
and chase him in turns around. Like, I'm not militant, but I do like to. Yeah, if you're not driving where the header's gone, you're in the wrong spot. So, particularly with the strip front, if you're in the crop.
Yep.
So,
that's awesome. And it's funny you say that about the variations in soil types and conditions, because that's something that I've learnt over my time with Seraphins, is that what works for one guy doesn't always work for another. So you've got to be open to, okay, this system is not going to suit everybody in the format that it is now, but it doesn't mean that you can't modify it or change it or utilise it in a different way to suit their needs.
Yep.
And looking at different gauge wheel options, press wheel options, all of those sort of things to suit different conditions. That's been a big learning curve for myself personally.
Yep.
But that's just come from conversations.
Yep.
And looking at what's worked and what hasn't, and having farmers out there using the machine, and they're going, you know what, I actually had to move the gauge wheel away because it was just building up on the gauge wheel too much and was building up in between the discs. Moving it away, it's made a big difference. And then the next bloke you talk to, I've actually had to push it in close and rub it right up against it because I put it away and it was horrible. It was building up on the disc, and it's just like, right, I've got to learn more in different conditions and give the right advice at the right time.
Yep.
And that's the same as our agronomists.
Yep.
You're lucky you've got a very good agronomist.
Yep.
Have you seen in your time and talking to different farmers across the place, more agronomists adapting to some of the processes and things that we're doing now, or are they still, we've got to go to the knife point and chemical because that's what we want to sell?
I don't know. There's some agros that, I think that they're probably just rusted on with what they know, and why change a system that's working?
Yep.
And there's other agros, like I'm very fortunate that I've got David Bushell as one of my agros that has been a conventional agronomist for a lot of years, and was working with a corporate farm and saw what because he got to see a lot of farms in context because he had a large amount of acreage.
Yep.
Saw what certain elements of mainstream production systems had, what effects they had on land, and I'm very fortunate that I've got him, and I've got Cole Bowie, who he's a West Australian based but come over here for a few years, so he's got clients everywhere all around Australia, so he gets to see that context as well. And those blokes there are very cutting edge in terms of their agronomy thinking.
Well, I see that that farmers get a lot of advice, and they do make a lot of decisions based on what their agronomists say.
Yep.
And having agronomists open their eyes, and I think realistically, when particularly disc seeders really come out in that sort of late sort of 2000s, early 2000s, we were sort of starting to see a few more.
Yep.
Didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the chemicals to back it up, didn't have the agronomy advice. There was probably a lot of bad decisions made at the time, and it probably put a bit of a sour taste in a few people's mouths.
Learning experience.
It's a learning experience.
And the biggest
thing.
You
look at it, that's right.
And this is what I tell everyone when they talk, when we start talking disc seeders, I say it's a disc seeding system.
It is a system. It is so much.
It is not a disc seeder.
It's not a replacement for a tine.
It is completely opposite. And we need to think of it as a disc seeding system. What works with a tine seeder is stubble that's cut short, spread, so that your tine can get through it, and you've got herbicide options that, you can throw it out of the trench and that sort of thing. If you go and put a disc seeder into that system, we're using herbicides that are designed for tine seeding systems like Treflan and that sort of thing. As soon as you use a disc, it'll pull it down in the furrow and it'll kill your wheat. If you haven't hairpinned it already because your harvest height's been too low and your spreading's been too horrible.
It always comes back to harvest too.
It does. Something starts at harvest, but
that's right.
and then when you start thinking about, right, well, we want to increase our residue because that's why we went to a disc is say, well, we had about half a tonne difference between a 15 centimetre harvest height and 30 centimetre harvest height in a trial in 2015 with the bobtail spring. So we said, if we can add $150 to our bottom line, we should be harvesting at 30 plus centimetres high, not 15.
The old beer can used to be the
old beer can height cost you half a tonne.
That's right.
Plus it cost you 4 k's an hour in harvest speed and fuel, and so there's a lot of costs there.
It's amazing when you start adding it all up. That's right.
So that's what swung us into the disc. And we said, if 30 centimetres, or this much makes this much difference. Well, if we can harvest with a stripper front and leave all of the straw there, the only way we're going to get through that with the disc seeder. So that's why we went that way. And then obviously we want to close our rows up for weed competition and all that sort of stuff as well. So we're on 6.5 inch row spacings now. We're seeing
and you have been for a while too,
since 17. Really big reduction in weed numbers because of our crop competition. Anyone that does a 30-year trial should be rewarded, and that's what they did over in Western Australia with a row spacing trial. And what they found is they had a big blowout in ryegrass from they had 9, 18, 27 and 36 centimetre row spacings for 30 years, static plots, year on year, that's what it was. You had the odd occasional year that you had a blowout in the 9 and 18 centimetre, and this was all tine seeder too, in Merredin, mind you. And they started as a yield trial, but it quickly turned into a weed competition trial.
You could see it,
and what they found was, yes, it was 1% per inch under 12 inches was the magic number. So 1% yield potential per inch you come underneath. But you had a big weed blowout in 27 and 36 and uncontrollable. Whereas you just add crop competition with row spacing. And we've brought down weed numbers. We have increased our herbicide use a bit too, but
that was going to be my next question.
Because we want to get oats in the system, and we are getting oats in the system, so we need to be mindful of our weed spectrum. But so the disc seeder enables you to do a lot of things. You can harvest high with a stripper front, enables you to keep a lot of moisture in the soil. But row spacing's a really critical one too. But to do all that, you need to change your thinking from tine seeder agronomy to disc seeder agronomy, and it's a disc seeding system. And certain herbicides go out the window, and Treflan being one of them. My view is, if you're using Treflan, you haven't got enough ground cover. So you should ideally.
We do get the occasional comment from some disc seeder owners, I've still been using Treflan, haven't had any dramas. And you go, okay, it's a fine line too.
And like I've used it with a disc seeder in canola. That's fine. First year, and it was really bare. Bare as this. I said, it's the only opportunity I'm going to get to use it. But let's use it.
As you get further into it.
I don't want to use it. I don't want to see our stubble, our soil. That's realistically the aim of our system, is we have 100% ground cover all the time. But
all year round.
And we need to change our way of thinking to say, well, if that's our aim, we need to manage, obviously, sowing date. Let's not sow it in May. It's really easy to sow with a disc seeder when you got your shorts on. It's really hard when you got your jacket on like we do today. We need to manage our harvest so that our straw is the correct type of straw to go through. Chopped up fine shit on the ground is no good. So we've got to manage that. We've got to manage our spreading. We've got to manage our nutrition. Because we've learnt that our residues are high in pH. They've got a lot of ureas in them, and they've got high carbon to nitrogen ratios. So why would you go and spread urea on that? Which is, that's been our convention for 30 years, is let's go and spread urea. we go and put that into this system, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And we've been wondering why our nitrogen use efficiency is very poor. It's because it's been leaving into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So that's changed our fertility program. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that have changed.
It's that
because
it's
of
funny how
that can of worms that's been talking
the can of worms, and it's that flow-on effect.
Yeah,
because you change one thing in your system, and then it could bring in another. I'm not going to say a problem, another opportunity,
challenge,
another challenge, another opportunity to look at and change and look at what we're doing. And we're talking about the way that you were doing it for so long. That was based on that mentality of tine seeding.
Yep.
And not looking at all of that. With your stripper front, have you've been doing that for a while too? Was that around the same 17, 18 times?
So we had a demo down in those paddocks down there in 16.
Yep.
And
we're familiar with it over in Griffith for rice.
Yep.
It's been in that for a fair while too. It's only been sort of since I was talking to you guys at Vic No-Till about the stripper fronts and how you could use it in a broadacre system. And then it was funny because after that year, and I think it might have been 2020, I think it was at the conference, we had a heap of guys from WA.
Yep.
My phone did not stop ringing, and everybody's ringing about, can you get me a stripper front?
Yep.
Because we were short on them. And disc seeders. Everybody was looking at it because they just go, you know what, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it does.
Between the two.
It does. They should be sold hand in hand.
Peas and carrots.
Yep. Yeah. If you like peas.
If you like
your
peas.
daughter does it.
That's right.
So no, they go so well hand in hand, and a lot of the drawbacks that I know you.
I was going to say, what challenges have you faced?
You've probably heard a lot of disc seeders won't work because of this, and this, and this.
Oh,
or disc seeders won't work around here, and stripper fronts won't work around here. Well, where's round here? It's usually between your left and right ear. It works as part of the system. Yeah. To make the stripper front work, the system needs to be able to be, or it needs to be part of that system. And anyone that's, first thing that people, they ring me and say, oh, how do we make these things work? And I say, what's your race spacing? First and foremost, what's your race? And it's if they say, oh, I'm on 20 inches, you're going to get a lot of head loss. Yeah. Because we're on 6.5, we've got that wall of straw there. So we're not actually, I don't see the volunteers and the losses that, everyone claims to, stripper fronts, you'll get X amount more loss than a draper front. And I don't see that, but it's about.
But with that density too, the stripper front really works quite well because you're not harvesting all that extra product.
Well, we had two, when we had that demo down there, first thing Dad said is that thing switched on.
Yep.
We went from 105% engine horsepower and in stripping barley.
Yep.
And we went back to about 60, 65. It was on the flat. We increased our speed. I can't remember what it was, but the fuel number really stuck out for me. It was 2.5 litres per tonne of grain harvested with the draper front.
Yep.
And it was 1 litre per tonne of grain harvested.
And what we're paying for diesel now, that's massive.
Yeah, well, if you say it was a 6-tonne crop, litre and a half, that's 9, that's $20 hectare.
Yeah.
Right, 15 to $20 hectare.
That's right.
That's a saving. Yeah, absolutely.
Everywhere you look.
Everyone says, oh, less wear and tear on the header. Well, we've actually found, from running them for, 800-900 hours now. Yeah. Certain areas wear out less. Yep. Certain areas wear out more.
Yeah, because you're doing more grain rather.
Yeah, more grain on grain, which is probably more
abrasive at times.
Yeah, which rice machines, they probably wear out there anyway.
Yep, that's right.
But because we haven't got that cushion of the straw, we're finding certain things wearing out quicker. Which everyone said, but the engine's not working. Yeah, and that's the big thing that I like. But we can. I just don't think that I could get the capacity increase of the harvester. Yeah. Certainly in wheat, I still haven't worked it out yet. We run red header. Yeah. But barley and oats, I reckon I can get a bit more capacity in. Yeah. Barley, it just loves barley. Yeah. I could not. Well, I haven't found the bottom of it yet at 110. Yeah. I know when I went to header school, they said the clean grain elevator's got 2 speeds, low and high. Yeah. Be getting up around 120 tonne an hour. It's about time to kick it into high speed. Yep. That'd be for corn, high yielding corn, rice, and all that sort of stuff. That's right. Yeah. So I thought, oh, well, there's a benchmark.
Yep.
See if I can get
See if
there.
I can get there.
I'm getting close. I just got to grow more grain to be able to get it there. But
I like it. Like it.
no, it's certainly, you know, we said from the start, and Dad learnt this in the droughts, that, you know, ground cover is king.
Yeah. Particularly in those real tough years.
Well, I think it was 2006. I think we bailed out there at 5 Oaks, and the next year, 2007, another tough dry year. But there was all these squares that were about 4 inches taller, all out in the middle of the paddock. Dad couldn't work out why. Like, it was this much taller.
Yeah.
The thing he put it down to was that where the bale come out of the bale chamber the year before.
Yep.
There was just a little light film of chaff on the ground. There was 8 before.
Just enough.
Just enough to make 4 inches difference. Like,
really?
Yep. So if
crazy,
that much ground cover can make that much difference in a 6, 7,
what can you do
8
across
inch
the paddock?
Well, if we can get a strip of straw like what we see behind us, and that was the 15 centimetres versus 30 centimetres. Everything that we've done is all pointed towards more ground cover is key, especially in a dry sowing conditions like what we've seen this year. We still had moisture to the top, whereas everyone was getting pretty sketchy. But if we want to make that constant, we've got to revolve everything around it. We've got to be able to seed into it correctly. We've got to be able to harvest, or make the ground cover there in the right way. And
comes back to that system.
It's a big system, and we still haven't got it worked out yet. And I think by the time that I can't say when I'm bald and grey, because I'm bald and grey after this year, but we'll get it worked out. But and it comes back to that conversation about agriculture is always evolving, and we won't know where we are in 20 years' time, because there'll be another thing that shows up and say, we see that after the last 4 years, been very, very wet years in the hills, and we're starting, well, it's wet again there now, because, we've been very good at conserving our water. We're now, having to change our system again to say, righto, well, if it's going to continue to be even average years, we need to start using some more water, because we're starting to lose country again. How's our system going to evolve again, because we're not losing 150 mils a year through evaporation?
What did Paul Parslow say? Water farmers.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be.
Either you're moisture farmers, whether you're using it because you've got to get rid of it, or you're looking for it and trying to retain it. It's about that, but it's also about carbon.
Yeah, it is. No, and the better we can get our soils functioning. There's a saying called earn your right. You've heard that. We've said it a bit around. A lot of people went into cover crops, particularly sort of when that North American influence come out, and we just didn't quite earn the right yet, because our soils weren't set up ready for it. I think in hindsight, from a Vic No-Till perspective, is that you've got to say, well, you've got to, if you're going to use the water, you've got to be able to harvest the water, whether it be with 4-legged harvesters or grow a grain crop or something like that. But when you're just using water and you're not harvesting and not making money, and you're going to compromise your winter cash crop, that was the thing that I think we didn't put one in the other. But I think we're
going back to what you said before about using what you learn elsewhere, but adapting it to
our conditions.
Your conditions. It's no good just copying what they do. They've got some great ideas. And it's funny, I think there was a comment on one of the other podcasts I listened to, the Glass Cage. They were talking about regen farmers, and naturally they had a bit of a snicker, but then one of them goes, but there is a lot we could learn from that. We've just got to be able to learn to utilise it on our farm. And I thought, that's probably, I wish more farmers would actually look at it like that, is because there is so many good things that can come from it, and taking care of our soils. It's going to make sure that when the young fellas going out there saying, hey, Dad, I've just come back and I'm ready to bloody take over the farm, the soils are going to be in good health, that they're going to be able to do it. Because if we don't, well, then it's going to be in trouble.
Well, Jay Fuhrer's got a good saying. He said, if you're adding more carbon than you're removing from your system and your soils, there's a fair chance that your kids will farm your land.
That's a really good way to look at it.
So if you're doing the opposite, there's a fair chance that you won't. So, and I think that's where, and it gets back to the context thing. I think that's where all us farmers, as a collective, that's what we should be striving for. We should be striving for, making our soils better, increasing our carbon content of our soils, because they will function better.
But
it's
proven.
It means that our next generation gets a chance, and I think most of us look at ourselves as we are, custodians for the next generation. We're here having a good time farming, but we're looking after it. Yeah, and that's, I think, realistically, we've got a
do it for the money.
Well, or the work hours,
the work hours. You
work
do it
conditions.
So you've got something to pass on.
Yeah, and I think even if we're looking at farming, on a corporate scale,
a lot that they can take away from it too.
Corporates, they can come and go and buy and sell and that sort of thing. But realistically, we are food growers.
Yep.
And we need to leave our land in obviously better nick than when we found it.
Yep.
Not saying that this previous generation done anything wrong, because they did things with what they did know at the time.
That's right.
But if we can continually improve that to the next generation, it means that the next generation's got food security.
Yeah.
And you go and look at countries that haven't got food security.
Yeah.
And they're the countries that are in turmoil. That things aren't going quite as well. Certainly not as good as Australia, and
it's pretty bloody good out here.
We're very fortunate that we live in a country that we are.
And getting out and doing the podcast, it's a fantastic opportunity for me to sort of reflect too about how lucky we are to talk about so many different people in different conditions and in different parts of farming and agriculture in general. But everybody loves it.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be here if you didn't.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Beats living in the sticks, mate.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So.
You said four-legged harvesters, so you don't have any stock anymore?
Not on the farm at the moment.
Yep. Never say never though.
Never say never, but I'd like to not own any.
Yep.
It killed me there a couple of years ago, and this comes down to context. We were mixed farmers.
Yep.
Certainly got us to where we are today.
Yep.
And to be honest, it's still a great way of farming.
First different farms.
Certainly. Certainly, if I was geared a bit differently between my years, I'd probably certainly would be farming that way.
Yep.
Certainly with a lot of knowledge that I know now. Lucerne-based pastures were really good, but we saw what they did, particularly to our soft granite hills, and we had a lot of erosion issues and stuff like that. So that was one of my big driving factors to say, no, well, the sheep have got to go and the pastures have got to go, because we could see the benefits of stubble retained no-till systems.
Yep.
And obviously I didn't like sheep work. Pretty allergic to sheep yards.
Yeah. But they're labour intensive too.
Yes and no.
When it was only really two of you there to do it.
And that's why we are. We're only a two-person operation.
Yeah.
But certainly I think that they've really got a place, and if we spend as much money on livestock handling facilities as what we do on our broadacre cropping gear, I reckon we'd probably be pretty good, and me and Dad would probably be able to do it.
Yep.
But it comes down to what you enjoy. And I enjoy broadacre farming. I don't enjoy sheep.
Yep.
I enjoy eating them.
Yep.
That's about it.
Sunday roast is pretty good.
Don't mind seeing Alan sheep out the back there.
Yep.
I don't mind seeing a few cows, that sort of thing. But I think that they certainly still have got a place on farms, and certainly if we look at regenerative farming, I don't think that we got it too far wrong.
That was going to be my point. How do you see that mixing in with cropping, with regenerative farming, all of those sort of things? There's a place for them.
Oh, certainly.
Because again, I just see it as another challenge that you can make it part of it.
Well, I don't know. This is probably, it's really hard to define. Regenerative farming, what is it?
That's right.
Conventional farming, what is it? And I think, well, we've got a really good mate, Fraser Pogue. He describes, or he's got a name or description. It's good farming.
Yeah.
We want to be good, doing good farming. We want to be good farmers. I think that if we, and his view on things is, and he's an organic farmer now.
Yeah.
But if we're doing more good things than bad, we'll be improving our soils.
That's right.
If we're doing more bad things than good, then we'll be depreciating our soils.
Going backwards,
and I think we're really, farmers are on a spectrum between doing everything really good and nothing wrong, and doing everything bad and nothing good.
Yeah.
About that, we're farming on spectrum,
Yeah.
you know, and I think, you know, it's really hard, you know, to say that I'm a regenerative farmer or I'm a conventional farmer, or, you know, because realistically, you know, there's 95% of farmers now doing conservation tillage.
Yeah.
There's not many out there with the plough anymore year on year. And, you know, where do you put them in the regenerative space? You know, where as a no-till, like no-till is a, you know, regenerative tool.
Yeah.
But if you've got the metric of, you know, we want to, it is really easy to define, really. If you say, you know, you go back to Jay Fearer's quote and you say, well, yeah, we want to be adding more carbon than we're removing. Yeah. Yeah.
And that could be the defining line.
It could very well be. And realistically now you can get remunerated pretty well for it, you know, with carbon projects and stuff like that. So there's really no, well, if I said that you could store more water, you know, sow on time, hopefully, you know, grow more grain, grow better quality food, more nutrient-rich food, and get rewarded for it financially. You know, why would you say I want to go backwards?
That's right.
You know, I want to do as much as I can to try and remove as much carbon as I can. So
because on the flip side of all this, it always come back to you're still running a business. You still got to be viable. Yeah, exactly. And going too much one way, too quick too, as well, that can be detrimental. So again, to me, that's not good farming. No. Even though it might be good for one part of it, you've still got to maintain that profitability and be able to, you know, year on year, keep the roof on the family's head and you know, still be able to bloody go on a holiday if you can, do these sort of things. That's what it's all about as well. So
at the end of the day, if we're not profitable, we can't fix our country.
Exactly right.
You know, the first step is to be profitable. Otherwise, we don't get to do this. So, and that's the thing that we got to not lose sight of. You know, as you said, we are business managers. And it has changed a lot, you know, since Granddad's generation.
100%.
You know, it was not a lifestyle, but it was a way of living. You know, now the costs are quite large that you need, you know, and there's intergenerational, you know, things that I don't think that Granddad probably thought that the farm would be in its current state now. I think he was probably thinking it was going to be, you know, support his family, and then there was not going to be a generational thing. So, you know, I think it's a really good thing that, you know, we are looking at it that way, because I think, you know, even if, you know, in reality, if your farm's not going to be held by your family, it's going to be held by someone else in the next generation. So realistically, we are intergenerational farmers.
That's right. Regardless of whether it's bloodline.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, too, it's such a great industry that I want my kids to be involved in it.
Absolutely.
In some format. Like I got my young bloke going to Yanko Ag, and I'm like, come on, mate, where are you going to go? And he goes, might be a barber. And I go, oh, we have to be a barber in the bush, mate, because you hate the city. That's, you know, at the end of the day, long term, we've got to look at making sure that everything is viable, because the last thing we want to do is rely on another country to feed us.
Yeah, no, exactly right.
We've got to be able to do it. Let's move on to Vic No-Till. So you're the president. Congratulations, you've been president for a while too,
For a little while, this is my third year. So
how'd they con you into doing that?
Obviously part of the board first. We got invited to be part of the board from Matt McKinley, who was stepping back. So he's a local farmer, not far away from us. And,
I think you nearly need to change your name too, Vic No-Till. You've got a lot of board members from New South.
Well, it seems a bit weird that the president's a New South Welshman.
Yeah, it's all right.
We got.
But it suits. Everybody knows what you guys are about.
And I suppose it's a name that we've been part of for 22 years or whatever it was. You know, we're still the Victorian No-Till Farmers Association, known as Vic No-Till. Obviously, with where Sanford is at the moment, a no-till organisation like ours has probably got room to expand a bit into South Australia now. Certainly, we've got members in every state and territory in Australia. We've got members from New Zealand. We've got members from
really?
Canada.
You didn't know that?
From England.
That's right. That's cool. Gone worldwide. I love it.
But realistically, our core is in New South Wales or Southern New South Wales and Vic. But we still believe that there is room, you know, for us to potentially grow into a national organisation.
Right. That's cool.
Which, you know, realistically, when you look at it, we're a membership-based organisation. We got, you know, circa 250 members.
Yep.
So it's
and you've got
one of
some
those
really
things
long-term members. You've got some long-term board members.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
You know, it's certainly, it's not a life sentence to be on the board, but it's
Yep.
certainly quite enjoyable to be part of.
That's good.
You know,
A lot of like-minded people too.
It is, yeah, and you get to, you know, when we go to a board meeting, we get to shoot the breeze and have a meal and you know, talk about how
they're a good bunch of blokes too, and women.
Yep, that's right.
Yep.
You know, we're not a bloke society.
No, that's true. I did notice that.
Yeah, we've had Tara on the board for a long time now.
Yeah.
Amy.
Shout out to Tara.
Yeah.
Obviously a customer.
So it's
which is good. It's really good to see because they also bring another set of eyes, another thought process, but they're just as passionate.
They are
100%.
No, and agriculture is not, you know, it's not a male dominant industry, you know.
Not anymore, and it's again another shout out. One of the recent podcasts we did recently with Derek and Sky. Sky's she's a champion. The amount of work that lady does and has for such a long time, it just really you know highlights just how much women have in agriculture.
Yeah,
and it's good
that's
see,
right.
So.
It's the way that you look at it through the generations, it's women have always been part of agriculture.
Just the roles that they play.
Sometimes the most important person is the person that packs the lunch boxes in the morning. So,
usually the ones that pays the bills.
So, but yeah, it's Mum, she spent a lot of her time, driving chase men at harvest time and that sort of thing.
That's good.
Grandma was looking after us when I was really young, and Mum was out driving chase bin and working in the yards,
and that's still a part of it.
That's right. And my wife is the same. You know, she's looking after the kids at the moment, but out there helping where she can and however she can, and that's
all hands on deck, mate, on a farm.
It is, and even you look at corporate scale farms, and there's a lot of female staff members that are part of the farming operation. And, it's really important that we recognise that, and even though that we've got a fair few blokes on the board, we're still open to having women as part of the board as well, and,
which is good.
Yeah, you look around the room, and when we have our conference, there's a lot of women in that room as well, and they're just as much part of running the farming business as what the blokes are. So
very much so.
And that's what we encourage is part of our mantra, I suppose, is that we want to get the whole family business there, or the whole business there. You go and look at Gus from Kilda Rural. He talks about having buy-in. He's a manager, like the financial manager for those guys down there. But he looks at, and they're looking for good farming approaches on their holdings, and he talks about having buy-in from all the staff, and I think that's a really important thing. No matter what your enterprise is when you're farming, we've got to have buy-in.
100%.
And that's husband and wife and intergenerational. Everyone's got to have buy-in for. If we want to change things, we've got to get.
So that's a common story I hear from guys looking to make some changes. Is I'm getting a fair bit of resistance from the old man.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Dad wants to still do it the same way as his dad did it. He goes, but I can see the benefits, and it's just like, right, well, baby steps. But at the end of the day, you've got to get buy-in from all parties, because I can guarantee you, in 2 or 3 years, that guy's going to be going, oh, yeah, Dad won in the end, because it's easy to. You've got to get buy-in.
No, it's really, it's really good when you're sitting in the passenger seat of a ute. And he pulls up next to the neighbour. Winds the window down, they're having a chat, and you're just sitting there quietly, and then the thing that you've been talking about, for 2 or 3 years, winds the window down, and he's telling the neighbour, and you go, well, things are, and that's the thing. It's not going to change overnight, and I'm probably guilty of that. I'll put my hand up and say, I probably wanted to rush into things probably quicker than what we should have.
But it's also good to have that steadying hand.
You need a rudder.
That's right.
You need someone that cuts, and you need someone that stays behind. And, that's the thing I think, and intergenerational things are really
Yep.
good, as hard as what it is at times.
That's why I take my hat off to you and your old man with what a good relationship is. But I'm sure you do have some great barneys too.
Oh yeah.
The fact that you both seem to be pointing in the same direction, working towards it, but with different ideas as well, and you communicate well. So I think that's a bloody hat off to you guys.
It is.
What sort of farming operation you've got running here now.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
It's challenging.
Coming out here, mate.
Like it is challenging. Don't get me wrong. You know, I started with a full head of hair before this. Yeah, and I think probably the biggest challenge for people, you know, from the older generation, to make that big step is, you know, as you said, you know, the father's done it this way for so long and saw, you know, it works, and we were profitable and makes a lot of money, and then the younger generation brings a different perspective on things and new learnings, and I think probably one of the biggest challenges is that, you know, they'll say, oh, well, this was all wrong. Yeah. Wasn't all wrong. You know, as the previous generation, you know, you're saying, oh, well, let's change it from here to here. And they go, oh, well, everything I did was all wrong. No, it wasn't.
That's right.
You did
what you had, what tools you had to work with.
And realistically, we're in a 100-year experiment. Yeah. We can see cause and effect things from 100 years ago. You know, we talk about taking fences out, and we can see 50 years worth of differences because of paddock history. Yeah. You don't get to see that straight away. Yeah. We don't get to see the effect of Roundup that was brought in the 1970s until, you know, we're a 50-year experiment. Are we going to see the results of that in another 50 years? I don't know. Yeah. Are we going to see the results of what we're doing now in 50 years' time? And they'll go, oh, well, you should have done this.
Did you say you've done some stuff over in England?
As in, what do you mean? As in
just looking at their farming practices and stuff like that.
Oh, we had Tim Parton over. Yeah. Who's and obviously Joel Williams.
Because they've been farming for a bloody long time too.
They have
a lot longer than us.
And so have the Yanks.
Yeah. So looking at some of those systems and stuff like that, I suppose they would have seen some very long-term changes, but causes and effects as well.
I think their changes happen slower because of their soil type.
Right.
You know, we are farming some of the oldest soils in the world. Yep. In some of the driest areas of the world. Yep. There's a reason. Well, when you go and have a look at the American, it's hard to say, but conventional production system of high tillage, and you know, I think, you know, generally in Australia we're probably 20 years in front of the mainstream agronomy in
because we've had to though.
And like John Kempf quotes, you know, for every bushel of corn is exported or grown, 2 bushels of topsoil is eroded. Yeah. Wow. How long can you keep doing that? Yeah. Like that to me is not sustainable. Yeah.
That's doing that, going back the other way, and instead of farming and putting more in.
But the reason why that they're able to get away with it, like Dad's seen it before, when they went over there, they had about a 6-foot spear. Yeah. And this fella, he just got on the top of it and just went like that. Now, how many soils in Australia can you push a 6-foot pro? And this bloke was like 7 foot tall. He should have been a basketball. Probably wasn't.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah.
He just got the top. Well, it might have been 8 foot. I think it was 8 foot, and he just drove it straight in. Like they got 60-foot deep topsoils. Yeah. You know, you go and have a look at Argentina and those sort. You know, they've got topsoils like that we could only dream of.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, our topsoils are not very deep. Yeah. You know, you go to the Liverpool Plains and they've got reasonably
good soils.
Good soils.
Yeah, some good soils.
But generally in Australia, on a whole, you know, we haven't got a lot of topsoil to play with. Yeah. And that's why, you know, I think we're probably starting to see things deteriorate, you know, quicker than, you know, we've been farming in Australia. Well, we've been in Australia for 220 years. We haven't been farming for all those years. Yeah. And we start to see things probably quicker than what they do in, you know, over in the States and over in England and Europe because of their soils. Their soils are different. They're more forgiving. Yeah. And that's the thing, that it comes down to context. Yeah.
Got to be working with what you've got and what suits your farm.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and you know, when we talk about Tim saying, "Oh, what's aluminium toxicity?" Yeah, there's a reason why BFB is in Australia. Yeah, you know, we've got heavy metals to die for. Yeah, you know, and that's what we're farming in. We're farming in, you go and look at our total soil assay, and just particularly around here, aluminium is one of the top 3 ingredients of our soil. So there's no wonder why we've got aluminium toxicity at certain times. And, and that's a condition I think that we've brought on about ourselves as well through previous management. But it's about understanding what we've got, and how we can, or what has actually led us to, put everything into context on our own farm. We've done this for this many years and we've ended up to here. And what can we do now? What's the cause of that? Let's change that, so we're not putting a Band-Aid on things. Like, let's not put 3 ton lime on and plough it in and keep doing the same thing. So we've got to do it here as well.
You're going to do me out of business, mate.
Well, by this season.
That's right.
And a really good thing, context and obviously time. Observation is a really really powerful tool. Paddock out the back here, Dad, when they were doing deep ends 25 years ago, and we had, topsoil that was this deep. Dad got home from the States. He said, "Oh, I'll go and take a shovel out, same paddock.
Have a look."
We got topsoil this deep now.
Right.
So that's gone from there to there
in
25 years.
Right.
But that doesn't happen overnight. It's, it's that thing of, chuck a frog in the boiling water and he's going to hop straight out. But if you chuck him in the cold water and put him on the stove, you'll cook him. And that's the thing, we're the frog in the cold water, and it's just, are we getting cooked or are we going to jump out? And it's, and that's, where the evolution of agriculture is that, I think we've really got to recognise and what we're seeing today, we've got to respect where that's come from, but don't fix it for right now, fix it for the future.
Because there's some great lessons to learn from what we've done in the past.
Absolutely. They're learning experiences. And I think while the previous generation calls them mistakes, hate calling them mistakes because they're only mistakes if you don't act on them.
That's exactly right. I'm trying to teach a young bloke that.
We've had a lot of learning experiences in our time in the last 5 or 6 years to try and build the system that we're building, like the farming system that we've got now. But if you didn't act on them, they were mistakes. And they're very expensive learning experiences.
It can be.
But we've learned from them and we've made our system better because we've had that context of or that constant of we see the benefits of having good ground cover and running a disc seeder, and if we fell over on the first learning experience, we'd be back ploughing again. Because that would have happened back then. First time no-till came about, and they would have said, "Oh, this doesn't work." So let's go back ploughing again. So
put your head back in the sand.
So so that's sort of my views on those sorts of things.
Awesome. No, well, thanks very much for your time, mate. I know that you're a busy man. You're busy when we got here, and you're probably going to be busy this afternoon.
Well, good spraying day. So before the rain comes this afternoon.
Yeah, that's it. How does people get hold of Vic No-Till? Just as a really, really broad plug for you guys.
Well, you can go to the website. All our details are there. If you want to become a member, talk to Amy and she'll hook you up.
Awesome.
Obviously, we've got our conference coming 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of September. I hope I got that right. I'll get it right one day.
You'll get it right one day.
It's right between AgQuip and Henty Machinery Field Days. So got it in Wagga, so she's a local one this year. So,
excellent.
It's
might have to attend, I think.
I reckon you can probably
might have to pop in and say good day.
But that'll be really good this year. We've got a lot of good speakers.
Excellent.
And then obviously got Joel Williams this year, so everyone loves Joel, but for good reason. And then we're having a masterclass with him at the end of the conference as well. So that's going to be a full day of learning, pretty heavy learning, but really good in-depth sort of conversations around a lot of the new things that he's been seeing around his travels.
Fantastic. Well, if anybody's out there around the Wagga area and you are keen, definitely have a look. I can't talk highly enough of their conferences. They're well run. You do take a lot away from it, and the bit of chat and banter after at the end of it is always good too. Always like it.
A couple of beers at the end of it.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciated. I'll probably go another cup of coffee, I think.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in again. Really appreciate Dan's time and inviting us to the farm. As always, like and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss out. We've got some really good episodes coming up as well. and constantly out looking for more. So yeah, we'll catch you next time.